it's Kelly from Cards by Christine and the Sunshine Stampin' Co. here with you today for the Silly Old Bear sampler class. Just thought I'd show it off real quick there. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so happy that you're here. I have not designed a sampler class before, with an exception of, what do we have? Summer Stampin' Fun in the Sun. I did help Chris. It was the Waterside Retreat one. That was the first time I had ever had a run at a sampler. And trust me, Chris was the lead. I was just the co-pilot. But I was challenged to create this beautiful sampler, and I loved every second of it. So thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate you spending your time with me to design this beautiful sampler. So today we will go through how to make this. I do have the sample here, and I have a kit just like you guys have a kit. And we will go through the steps of how to make this beautiful sampler. So I need to do roll call. I see I have a couple friends in already. So we've got Nancy Mole, who is another of my very passionate Winnie the Pooh friends from the North Shore of Lake Erie. And then hello to Susan Bellamy as well. So thank you guys so much for being Johnny on it. Let's see here. In terms of our roll call today, joining us for class, we have Angelique Schaefer, Kathy Crumpton, Connie Moore, Debbie Stone, Donna Gruchke, Elaine Peranio, Ellen Brover, Judy Dean, Kelly Gibson. We also have Kimberly Snow, Leslie McMinn, Margene Eskelson, Feline Mays, another of my Winnie the Pooh besties, Quincy Bridge, Rita Steffi, Rosie Prouty, Sarah Stoack. We have Sherry Everett, Trisha Fagley, Wendy Tick, Ann Diaquisto. We also have Nancy Mole. We have Marsha Roberts. We have Beth Meyer, Carla Lake, Gloria Verstegen. We have Chris Montgomery, Becky Gandolfo, Karen Woods, and Jill Butzine. So lots of friends joining us today to make this beautiful sampler. I do have a few left. Okay, sorry, bringing my stuff over. I do have a few left if you are interested. Hello, thank you so much for joining. I think there's about 8 left, maybe, something like that. So if you know of anyone who is interested or are interested in a second one, please just let us know. I know. Okay, Nancy Mole is observant. So you can see behind me a lot of prime, empty real estate. So we had our open house this past weekend, and it was amazing. So Chris invited the neighbors, she invited the community at large, and also boosted it on Facebook to invite people back to crafting in person. And we had a very awesome event on Saturday afternoon. She gave all of the people who are in-person teachers the opportunity to promote their business. We did free make and takes, and then afterwards we had the opportunity to talk with the people who came. It was a really great time. And obviously she was also showing off the space because obviously, sorry, that's a lot of obviously, it's worth showing off. So this place was spick and span, and she's actually gone right now in Shipshewana, so it stayed clean, and it probably will for a while. But yes, there's space aplenty. It's funny. So, good eye, Nancy Mole. All right, so Your class is going to come to you in this, it's a DSP package. Let's see here. How do I want to do this? I'm going to move this off to the side for now. Does it fit over here? Let's see here. Because then I can see it while we're making it. That would be so helpful. Oh, there's a couple piles under the tables. The tables are obviously made for being used, but also they're really good hiding spots. Okay, so your kit is in a random old DSP package. I didn't want any of the stuff to get damaged, and your kit will have, I have my own embellishments that I'm going to use up. But, so, what we have for you in the kit, you are going to receive 2 sheets of basic beige two-tone cardstock. And then you also got a half a pack of DSP. That equates to 1 full sheet of each pattern. Now, we will be using some of these pieces in the class. I never even thought about that. I need my die. Okay. Well, a little bit of good morning, Mary Novak. Thank you so much. I just had a brain fart, so we will, you know, be working together to work through that. Anyways, so we also have this package. Now, in the package, we're trying a new system. This is the only time you will see it like this. We've got a note here that has the PDF instructions available. You can scan that QR code and it'll take you to a folder. In the folder, you will find the most up-to-date PDF. I also did email it out last night, but any updates or changes can be found on there. Then in your package, be very, very careful when you are opening up your package because there's a lot of loose pieces in here. You see a couple of them are hanging behind already. I'm not going to undo all of that quite yet because we will have to do some cutting and I don't want to have to contend with that. But you also will receive a pack of linen thread and an unused pack of antique pearls. I did bring my own in because I don't need to start a new pack. I have a perfectly good pack right here. So, I need to do a quick little ditty and go grab the dies. So, please don't mind me while I put this back in view and go grab those things. you guys, I'm back. I am so sorry about that. Okay. Mary Lou in New York City. I love poo. Okay, so I'm back. I made it. It took a little bit, but here we are. Okay, now I need to resituate myself. So the first thing that we are going to do, we need to, good morning, Sarah. Okay, and Donna, awesome. More people are rolling in. Thank you for joining. If you missed it, I had to run and grab some dies, so that was what the short little pause in programming was about. Okay, so we have to cut some DSP first, then we will marry that up with the supplies, and also need to do just a little bit of fussy cutting and character cutting. So let's start by assessing what sheets we have and what sheets we need. So this sheet isn't used in this project. This sheet, one of my favorite sheets, also was not used in this project. This sheet obviously is getting a lot of use, so I chose this particular scene and that particular scene. We will die cut those out in just a minute. Oh, backside is the stripes. I'm so sad about the stripes. I've never been able to use the stripes because I always want to use the character scenes, but these stripes are so good. So there, that's my little sadness. Okay, then we also have this sheet, not using the character side on this one, but we're going to use this scene, and this scene, and I will tell you more about the sizes in just a little bit. Then out of this page, we will use Pooh Bear with all of his honey pots, and then also the picnic basket scene, and also the picnic scene. Now, I also did bring Piglet in over here. She's kind of just watching, sorry, he. Piglet is a he, and I always say it wrong, even though I know it, but kind of peering up at Pooh as he's reaching for his honey pot. Did not use the pink plaid side. Then over here, we're taking one of each of the characters for the scene, as well as a honey pot and a row of honey pots. Okay? So that's what we are going to be working with. Then we also are going to work through and talk through how to make the background. That's those basic beige pieces. But for the time being, I need to take my sweatshirt off because I literally was running. One die was out in my car, and one die was upstairs, so I put the miles on. Good morning, Karen Wetstein. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so we are going to start by cutting out the DSP scenes. So that would be these two sheets of paper. The first thing I'm going to do is bring in my cutter and rough cut them. So I'm going to cut approximately between the two, which for these two panels that we are looking at right here is going to give me approximately 5 3/8. Yes, Margaret, this will be available on replay. Thank you for asking. Great question. Okay, so we're gonna cut there, and then we're going to rotate and cut approximately 3 7/8. Now, these are literally just approximate cuts. Basically, I'm cutting in the vanilla margin between. So I'm going to pull these off to the side. Then we are going to utilize this seam down here. So next I'm going to cut. This one matters a little more because we are going to use some of the vanilla border around it. But again, for the time being, we're just going to do a rough cut. So we've got approximately 3 3/4 by approximately 6, and then we'll further cut that down. Okay, so that takes care of that. Then we are going to grab these 2 seams out, which will need to be die cut using the label. If you don't have the label, you can always fussy cut around it. It's not that perfect that it has to be any particular. I'm just going to cut this by hand. So this takes a lot of coordination, and last night as I was preparing, and of course not preparing good enough because I forgot to do the die cutting, I recalled that this particular die was by my mom, who is prepping for my paper pumpkin alternative class. And she was literally in the process of making the cuts this morning. And I said, I need that die. So please, thank you for all of the things that you are doing to help me. But I'm going to need to steal that. So we will die cut these out. Right now we're just doing all rough cuts. Okay. Now we're going to do some fussy cuts. So we're going to start by taking this one. Now I will say this, it does cut just a little bit off of the bottom of the seam, but it's so very marginal that I have always used this piece because I feel like it's very much intact, and I didn't want to, that one's missing some of the honey pots. I didn't want to cut all the way up into the page to get either of those. So I am fine with rounding a little closer to the image on this particular one just to be able to save that. We're also using the picnic scene. Okay. Piglet. Oh. I did end up forgetting one scene. Where's the balloon guy from? Need to find that guy. Okay, and then we have picnic basket over here. Oh, I think that was from the first page that I instantly kind of pulled off to the side. So let's put this off to the side and bring that back. Oh, there he is. Okay, so we also have Piglet with his balloon. Now, I did have it coming off the edge of the page, but just like the Pooh with the honey pots, I'm fine using this even though it's missing a little bit of its balloon string. I am going to take this one because it's just going to cut it out of the corner there, and you'll never even miss it. Okay, so it is a little darkened in the corner up there, but I don't mind. I'm so glad that you love the Pooh picture. I think it's so adorable. Okay, so I'm just trying to kind of like lay my pieces around and see what else we need here. Okay. So, we need one of each of the characters. We also need a line of honey pots and an individual honey pot. I did use the red one over here. It doesn't matter to me whether it's the red one or the hydrangea one. There also is a green honey pot. I don't think it necessarily matters. I'm going to start by gathering the characters, and then from there I'm going to see what honey pot is in the vicinity. I will also say, you've seen already that I'm using a lot of the edges. I did not particularly use any of the edges here, but you will notice this owl, if you tuck him down even just a smidge farther than he is, you probably could use this one. This Eeyore, you probably could use along the bottom here. And even this Kanga, yes, it curves a little bit of the back off, but if you wanted to be really conservative with your paper, you probably could get by with those characters. Same with the Piglet and the Dandelion Spore. You probably could get by with all of these edge pieces. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set a good example. However, if you wanted to, you definitely could. This is an 11 by 14. Great question. Thank you for asking. Okay, so we're going to start. I always start in this bottom corner. I don't know why. So we've got an Eeyore. We've got some pots. We've got a Piglet. We have a Kanga. We have a rabbit. All right, we need an owl. We need a Pooh with a pot, which is here, and a Tigger. Okay, so let's... $11 by 14. Thank you, Donna. Yes, we've got an 11 by 14 for the frame size. Okay, then I need a honey pot. We've got a couple of them hanging out here. I'm just going to go ahead and grab this one right here. Okay, still plenty of characters, plenty of things that you can do and get out of this sheet yet. All right, then I'm going to pull all of these off to the side. All right, beautiful. We were just discussing what the size of this frame is. It's an 11 by 14, and that created a little bit of a challenge for the background because our paper maxes out at 12 by 12. And I did not want any visible seams, but how do you get 2 extra inches without a seam? So I made a design choice to add a tear through it on each side with a panel in the middle. So what I did, and I will walk through this with you because I have this same kit that you guys had. No fussy cutting, I just opened it just with you guys. So your 12 by 12 sheets, you have 2 of them. You do not need all of both of them, and I will explain to you how we are going to trim it down. You will have a little bit of extra, but you will use most of it. Okay, I need to get this to stand again. Okay. So, okay, you will need your straight cutter. Oh no! Whoops. Okay, so 12 by 12. You are going to cut your paper down to 11 by 12. Okay, so you're cutting an inch off the bottom. I did both of them at the same time. Okay, and there is a difference between the color. It does not matter to me whether you want to use the 2 tones or if you want to use 1 tone. I used, bring it back. I used the dark in the middle and the light on the edges. If you like that, you can do it the same way. If you prefer to have it all 1 tone, you can do that as well. So if you're using this frame that I ordered, I'd say the dark tone matches the frame best. If you like the contrast, you'd probably want to go with the lighter tone. All right, so there you have it. Now, okay, so keep standing. There we go, okay. So 11 is the height, 14 is the width. So I put my, let me move this out of the way. I put my full sheet, the dark side for the middle, and then I took this sheet of light and made the tear. What I did to make the tear was I made a couple of marks. So I brought in a pencil. Hopefully we have a pencil over here. Hopefully we have a pencil with lead. Okay, so for the time being, I'm gonna move the bottom sheet away. I'm going to tear from 2 inches down to 6 inches. So I'm going to make a 2-inch mark on the top and a 6-inch mark on the bottom. Okay, so I've got 2 little directional points. I'm going to tear from the 2-inch mark on the top down to the 6-inch mark on the bottom. That's going to make my diagonal. It's not perfect by any means. You can see here, you only see little parts of it, but basically it's somewhat of a straight tear. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top. I like to tear towards me so that you can see that white edge. So let's start at the top. Oh my gosh, my middle fingernail, so, sorry, quick sidestep. I have very strong nails. They don't typically break. I'm blessed. I don't know how or why. I don't care about visual aesthetics. Like, I never wear makeup, okay? Like, maybe once or twice a year to a wedding or, you know, a fancy get-up. I'm not someone who's into looks in any way, shape, or form. So it's funny that I was blessed with beautiful nails because I literally never do anything with my fingernails. But it tore off the side, and so I had to cut it, and now I don't know what to do with a finger without a nail. Right now I'd be tearing with it, but gotta choose a different one. Okay, so I pull forward at that first tick mark, and then I remind myself where I'm going, just so that I don't, you know, I don't want to make it too big of a tear. And then I'm just gonna start pulling forwards. Whoa! Okay, so I missed my mark by a little bit, which totally doesn't matter. This is just, it's just the background. So I can either go back and tear a little bit more in that direction, or I can just leave it. Honestly, I think I'm gonna look at it and see. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'm gonna try to erase the little eraser mark, but okay, then I'm gonna pull that off to the side. Now, I like to see the white, but I don't want to use the other white for two reasons. I don't want a V, and I don't want light, dark, dark. So basically, but now I want that white. So what I did was I just flipped this around and tore back down the opposite way. So now I can see the white on the other side. Okay, now I've got my section to create an unlimited length. So now I just need to make it work to make a width of 14 inches. So what I did, I measured an inch on my grid. So this is 12 inches wide, plus 1 inch on the side would be 13, plus 1 inch on this side would be 14 inches. So that's how I'm going to create my 14-inch piece. So I just did this. I measured an inch on the side. Okay, and then I took my adhesive. Oh my gosh, there's a glue graveyard over here. I'm assuming these are all good to use. They might be clogged in some way, shape, or form, but okay, basically, good morning to Kathy. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so we have one side on. Now we need to add the other side. So, roughly speaking, I wanted this to be about 2 inches from the top, so I'm going to I'm going to put this in my cutter. I'm going to put the start of the cut at the 2-inch mark and then cut down. So this is the extra piece that you have from creating the background. And now I want an additional inch. Okay, so we added the inch on this side. Now we're going to add the inch on this side. So I'm going to line this up over here. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to flip it over so I can make the tick marks. Okay, line this up over here. Line this up at an inch. Okay, now I'm going to bring my glue graveyard back to life. All right, now we have our 11-inch by 14-inch, okay, so 11-inch by 14-inch background. And it's got an intentional seam, actually 2 intentional seams, and it is ready to go. So I'm going to move that off to the side now. And we're going to take a little intermission to do some die cutting. So my sincere apologies. I had a brain fart. I should have done this ahead of time. If you are watching the replay, which obviously everyone who's watching right now is not, you can fast forward through this part. If not, if you're here with me live, I appreciate you and we're gonna make the best out of it. Okay, so I have my machine here. We are going to die cut each of these. I have the in-person version of this class after this, and that's what I was asking Mom to have the die for. It never equated in my brain that I needed it for this class. Whoopsies. Okay, so we're gonna cut that one out. Then we're gonna cut this one out. So this particular label is from the Sweet Words and Labels die set, which is from the Winnie the Pooh suite. There were 2 available. So there was the characters. Okay, come on. And then there were the quotes. I struggle with this every once in a while. The plates are a little warped, so it takes a little bit to get them in sometimes. All right, so we've got that. Move that off to the side. I love these labels so much. I used them on the Paper Pumpkin Alternative class that I just designed and am kitting for, and that's why Mom was using it. It came out months ago. Was it March, the release? I think it might have been the March release. So it's been out for a long time, and typically I, move on to other things that are newer, but the ornate details on those dies are just so good, and I like them so much. So I revived them, brought them back to life. Okay, so that moved a little bit. and I feel like I'm going to be using those dies for quite some time because they are very good. Not just because they had to do with the Winnie the Pooh suite. Like, obviously we knew I was going to like that, but because they are just really nice dies. The die kits also include other dies that cut out, like for instance, we had, I'm going to make my fussy cutting pile. We had the dies that cut out over here, the stump, the signpost, we have the honey pot, there were some leaves. So those are really nice dies to be included as well. You will receive a lot of those pieces in this kit, which we'll talk about in just a minute here. I didn't bring the tape over. It's nice to be able to tape the dies to the DSP so they don't move, but we're winging it, you guys. Oh, it's right over here. Silly man. Okay, we have, oh, that's the fussy cut pile too. Piglet with his dandelion. Obviously, there's plenty of room on this die plate that I could be die cutting a lot more out at one time, but you probably noticed that I'm trying to keep them as centered as possible on their die, and things just move in transit. So I don't want to overload the plate at all and have things move and jiggle and wiggle. So I appreciate you bearing with me while we get this underway. I told Mom, I dropped the boys off by my mom this morning, and that's when I stole the die from her. And I told her that this was the class that I was doing this morning, and she said, oh, wow, that feels like that was a long time ago, because she was cutting and kitting for this a long time ago. Well, okay, I do the cutting. She does the die cutting, and we did kit this up close to a month ago, maybe. I was like, I know it has been a little bit, but it had me thinking back to designing this. I had a real late night designing it. It might have been when I was just back from Vegas. I went to Las Vegas with my boyfriend. He loves Las Vegas, and I had never been. He's been there 14 times. He had previous aspirations to go live out there, but didn't quite make his bingo card. But anyways, so got back from Vegas and had to design this, and I had a couple late nights working on it. And the design process, you know, I don't think you appreciate it until you do it. And I surely did not have an appreciation, or as much of an appreciation for the time and energy that it takes to design until I started doing it with Chris. And it took 5 to 10, probably closer to 10 hours to get this thing all buttoned up. And I actually started, oh, thank you, Mary. I'm glad it made sense. You will notice in the PDF tutorial that it does not necessarily go through all of those instructions because you kind of need to watch it. I didn't know how to explain all of that. So I pray that that is okay for you all. But yeah, so I actually started the design of this piece on my computer. So I went to school for graphic design. I graduated, wow, 12 years ago. And so I'm pretty handy on the computer in the design programs. So I actually, the reason why is actually very, very funny. But I am terrified of wasting this Winnie the Pooh paper. And I know that once you cut something, you can't put it back together. So I did not want to cut any of the seams or any of the pieces and not be able to use them. So I actually designed it on the computer and then brought it to life in front of me. And I'm really glad that I did that. Now, you cannot do that for everything. I honestly don't know if I'll ever be able to do that again. But with these particular pieces being for a sampler, I feel like that was what allowed me to do that. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I still have the layouts on my computer. And it was an evolution to get from one idea to the next until finally, yes, I had the idea and it started coming together. Okay, now we're gonna do a little bit of fussy cutting. I will not do my best fussy cutting because I don't want this to have to take too long. Again, my sincere apologies that I forgot to do this ahead of time. Today, we do not have the magic of TV. Like, typically when we do, like, Create and Play, which is our version of bingo, Chris will hand things off to me and I'll do the fussy cutting while she's doing other things. I don't have that today, so again, my apologies that you are gonna sit here and listen to me while I do some fussy cutting. I used to love fussy cutting. I do not have the patience for it anymore, which is sad, but it is what it is. Still need to do it. There's, you know, we've come a long way with our die cutting. There's a lot of dies. Almost everything that you would want to be die cut has a die these days. But alas, still not absolutely everything. But anyways, so yes, so I worked on creating this sampler. It was a couple late nights at home after the boys went to bed. I remember it was, I think, 3 consecutive nights of being up until about 1. And I used to be able to do that, and I just can't anymore. But I had to, so I did. And I was so happy with how it turned out. The other thing about that, honestly, this is probably the only suite I would be able to do that for because the hours just went. Like, I remember looking up and it was 2 hours since the last time I looked at it, and it literally felt like I had been working for 10 minutes. It's unbelievable. If you've never been caught in a time suck like that before, man, don't do it. It just, the hours just fly away. And so, yes, it took probably 3 nights because when it got to, when I looked up and it was like 1 o'clock, oh, okay, yep, we're going to be getting up in a few hours, so we need to go to bed. So, it is what it is. But then, yeah, I brought it in by Chris the next day. I remember the first or second night that I was designing, Chris is quite a night owl, but I was staying up past Chris, and that is like, I was sending her messages like, what do you think of this or this or this? And I just kept sending them, not because, you know, I knew she was asleep, but because I sometimes you just need to process the words, and seeing it and sending it gives you all of the feedback that you need. So I just kept sending them because I kept figuring out the answers to the questions I had. So that was very therapeutic. And then she woke up and she's like, wow, that was quite a ride. Yeah. Do you like it? I do. So, oh, good stuff. All good stuff. All right. I had not used some of these images before. Obviously, I've done a stamp stack now. I did the Honey Pots and Happy Thoughts class, which was also cards. So let's see here, 15 plus, I've done 19 different card designs. Have I done anything else with Winnie the Pooh yet? I don't think so. But I wanted to challenge myself to not just recycle the cards designs on this sampler. So I started pulling out pieces that I've never used before, which in creating the sampler, I kind of thought of it like a storyboard, like I was telling a story about how Pooh ran out of honey and needed to go get more, and that kind of pulled me towards some pieces I hadn't used before. I didn't even see this picnic scene until I created the sampler, so I thought that was kind of fun. Same with the balloon. Obviously, I knew about the red balloon scene. I had used that focal image for a card, but I didn't know that there was a Piglet balloon. I mean, I maybe knew it, but didn't know it, if that makes any sense. All right, so just cutting around the balloon here. Obviously, I didn't need to use this piece, but I thought it was so cute to add him with the balloon. All right. So as I'm cutting around the string, obviously it gets really thin. You do not need to keep the string if that is too precise for you, because you gotta stay close to that string without the string actually falling off. But you could probably just cut the string off. I even considered putting a piece of linen thread on the end, but I tried really hard just to keep the string on, so that's what I did. I'm just gonna hover back. Last, but certainly not least, I need to stretch out my hand. Okay, so obviously this is the bottom of the paper. So I want to follow the bottom of the honey pots, and then when I get down to Pooh's feet, I'm just gonna round it a little bit to make it look like it wasn't the bottom of the paper. Not that it matters, I just want it to look intentional. Then when I get over to this red honey pot, there's a little space between, and I need Pooh to be looking in, not, you know, it wasn't quite exactly how I needed it. So I'm gonna cut right between these pots. Finish cutting him out. And then we're going to Frankenstein it back together when we get to the sampler. My goodness, guys, I did not wear a Winnie the Pooh shirt today. I wear a Winnie the Pooh shirt every day. What the hey? I actually wore my Sunshine Stampin' Co. shirt, which I think is just as good. All right, there's half, and then we're gonna go ahead and just trim around the rest of the honey pots. To finish it off. All right. Now I'm going to bring my sampler back in. And I'm going to collate my pieces so we know what goes with what. But before I do that, I'm going to get my kit pieces that you bought from me, that my lovely mother prepared for you. Okay, so again, when you take things out of the bag, be extremely careful. Okay, that looks empty. All right. We've got the pile that came from the paper, the pile that came from me, and the pile that we are creating. So, first we're going to lay out the early espresso mats. Now, I will tell you, this is also two-tone, so you're going to want to have all the same tone of espresso. So, there's a light side and a dark side. So, I wanted the dark side. I think everyone probably will want the dark side. Okay, so you've got 3 by 5 in the upper and lower corner. So upper left, lower right. You've got 5 by 6 for the big character scene. You have 2 die cut mats, and then you have 4 by 6. Okay, so that's how you lay them out. Then you have, let's see here, a mat of hydrangea hue and a smaller rectangle of hydrangea hue. Then you have the 2 olive pieces. Okay, I'm actually going to do this a little differently. All right, we're back in business. All right, then we have this brown label that is nested with this vanilla label. We have this label over here. You have a die cut circle down here. You have this label over here, this label over here, and then a strip on that one. Okay, now let's bring the scenes in. So we have honey pot, balloon, we have picnic background, we have tree background, other tree background. Okay, we have piglet, we have poo and honey pots, we have picnic, we have balloon, we have picnic basket, we have one of, oh no, I dropped something. I dropped the honey pot. I'm just gonna quickly put the honey pot over there before I lose it. We have one of each of the characters. And we have honey pots. Hello, Marcia. Thank you so much for joining. Better late than never. All right, now you still have a pile of pieces over here. So we've got the pieces of the stump. We have the pieces of the honey pot, so the pot and the honey. We have 3 leaves. So one small leaf, and then these leaves should be the same, or I don't know if they're always going to be the same or if mine are just happen to be the same, but one second. Mom's die cutting for me and has a die cutting question. Oh goodness, yes, it's a mess. Okay, we have the signpost with the 2 signs, and then we have acorns. The smaller acorn goes up here, and the bigger acorn goes down there. Those are your pieces. Oh, I forgot to cut the sky piece. So we need to cut down these 3 scenes, and we need to cut the sky piece. Those things we will do as we create the scenes. So from here, we're going to now transition to assembling the 6 different scenes. I'm also going to quickly take a potty break. My sincere apologies. That was ironic timing. I literally just ran to the bathroom and Tyler was leaving for work, so I got to say goodbye to him. That was so sweet. Okay. Thank you so much. I wanted to take a drink of water because I've been talking a lot, except for I was like, oh, if I take a drink of water, I really need to go potty. So, all right. It's time to start making our scenes. I'm gonna move this whole thing off to the side and bring back the scenes one at a time. So this is the top left scene. We've got Pooh Bear holding the picnic basket. We also have a honey pot, a label that we will stamp, and before we get too far, we're going to put together our acorn because we don't want to lose any pieces. Okay, so we'll put the acorn cap on and that can dry. All right, so our scene here needs to be trimmed down to fit in our mat. The size of our mat is 3 by 5, which means the size of our scene is going to be 2 3/4 wide by 4 3/4 tall. To make those cuts, I'm going to bring in my paper cutter. I'm going to start along the top. I want to not cut off any of the tree, but I do not want any vanilla. So I'm going to make the cut between the tree and the sky, cutting all of the vanilla off. Okay, looks approximately like that. Then I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees and trim off the bottom. So we're doing 4 3/4 and cutting just wherever that happens to be. All right, then I'm going to turn it and cut as to not cut off any of the branch. So I want to cut somewhere in this vicinity, making sure I do not cut any of the branch off. Then I'm going to rotate and cut at 2 3/4 wherever that cut happens to be. Now I can move my straight cutter off to the side and my piece will fit perfectly in its mat. All right, then I'm going to bring in and do a little stamping. We are using early espresso for our ink. And you deserve a little treat. That comes from the Sweet Words and Wishes stamp set. So all of these stamps or sayings have something to do with Winnie the Pooh. Either it's a quote from the series or it corresponds with a scene that has to do with Pooh. This can be just centered, left to right and top to bottom. Beautiful. Okay. Fell off my block. I've got the in-person class after this, so I want to keep it on its block. I don't want to lose the stamp. Okay. Alrighty. So for the front, frame, I had intended to get a shadow box, but I got a flat frame. So I used a lot more dimensionals than I would have had I known I was going to get a flat frame. The shadow box options I couldn't find one that was the right size or the right color or the right price. They got quite pricey. So I'm going to do this just a little differently in the extent that I had used dimensionals on here and I'm just going to glue it flat, okay? Now, if you have a shadow box that you want to use, you might want to do dimensionals on this layer. That is up to you. Again, this side is lighter, this side is darker. I want to utilize the darker side. Then we're just going to mat this in there. Now, I still am going to use dimensionals, just not on that entire layer, which I had done on my shadow box, which didn't end up being a shadow box. Okay, next we're going to add ribbon. So I'm going to bring in my tear and tape. Linen thread. Ooh, sometimes it's hard to find the start of the linen thread, but that was a blessing. Okay, so I'm going to start, because we have the whole roll, I don't want to worry about ribbon conservation. There's a lot on here and I'm not worried about it. So I'm going to start by doing a tail and a loop. And a loop. And a tail. Go to the back, sandwich it up. And put some dimensionals on the back. Oh, goodness. Got a variety pack. Lots of strips. All right, this gets placed centered on the bottom. Then we're going to tuck Pooh Bear behind. He's flat. Now, I have it in such a manner that it looks like he's walking just on top of the words. And yes, his arm is hanging off. I did that on purpose. I liked it. Then we are going to put the honey pot. I don't want to have to cut them all. I'm going to grab, I guess we'll use black, at least for now. Okay, so the honey pot, and I'm going to add just a little bit of glue to the bottom. I'm going to double stack this, not that you want to do that. I'm only doing it because I used a kit dimensional on the back of the sentiment, which is thicker than the traditional dimensionals. Again, a dimensional behind the acorn and just a smidge of glue behind it. And he's just gonna nest right next to it. All right, we are going to make the 6 panels, put them off to the side, and come back to actually adhere them on the background. So for the time being, that gets moved out of the way. Next we have the character scene. So we can bring all of these pieces in. As I mentioned earlier, we do need to cut a piece of sky DSP, and we have to do some stamping. So I'm going to stamp first. The best kind of days are the days spent together, which I thought was a great sentiment to use with all the friends. This just gets centered in the vanilla label, but bear in mind, it does get quite tight. So it kind of does touch the border. So it gets quite tight on the edges, but it does fit. Okay, that's the most important part. All right, excuse me. For the sky, we are going to bring in our cutter and our piece of sky paper. Okay, so the funny thing is I think I can use this little piece down here. You are going to want to use a portion of your paper wherever you want. I'm just going to start down in the bottom. So we've got 5.5 is our needed width. I need to get past this little honey pot though, so I'm gonna cut it at 6. Cut into Eeyore's butt. And then come down. This could be not correct. I think it's gonna fit. Yeah, that looks good. If it doesn't, I'll pay the price later. I can always cut another one. Now, we need it at 5.5. So I want this honey pot in the middle, so I'm actually going to take a 1/2 inch off that side. 5.5 is the width. The height for your sky, okay, so 5.5. It's going to be approximately 2 to 3 inches. So you can use a piece of scrap, or you can cut a piece that fits with no little dingleberries cut out of it. Okay. Lots to do here. So that nests perfectly. All of that is going to get covered up by grass or characters or labels, so I'm not worried about that. Okay, so where to begin? What a great question. Let's move everything off to the side. I'm going to start by popping out the little extras and gluing on the sentiment. That just gets centered. We're also going to glue together the stump, so you can put just a little bit of adhesive on this tab down here, and then adhere it to the stump piece. Then we also want to glue together the honey pot. Small little bit of glue here. Okay. Then we are going to tear our grass pieces. So you want to choose, you want the grass growing up, and you want to choose which side you want your grass blades, whether you want one way or the other way, and you just want to make sure that both of your olive pieces are going the same way. Then you're going to, okay, so this is a 2-inch piece and this is a 4-inch piece. So you want to tear the top of your grass. Okay. And then here's where I was doing some visual measurement. Oh my gosh, I made that way too big. So you actually are gonna be tearing a lot of this off. A good inch. I think I intended to make this a 3-inch piece, and I made it a 4-inch piece. So it is what it is. Yeah, oopsies. So you want about 3 inches. You want about 2 3/4 inches of grass. So you're going to be, you can either trim an inch off and then tear. I think I'm going to do that just to show you what that looks like. So cut it at 3 inches and then tear it. Yeah, that was my bad. Okay, we also want to glue the sky to the mat and the mat to the espresso mat. Okay. All right. Then to adhere these down, I ran dimensionals along the top. Do not take the dimensional backs off yet. Okay, get them good and stuck down. And then run glue along the bottom. I do want a border to be sticking out, so you don't put the green all the way to the bottom. Okay. Then you're going to do the same. Dimensionals across the top. Glue across the bottom. See how the sky fits ever so nicely, and then that little bit that pops out you can cover with the sentiment. Okay. Now we want to put a little bit of ribbon off of the side of our sentiment. This is optional. We're going to put a rat's nest off of this side. So I'm just going to put some tear and tape between the holes. Don't want any tear and tape peeking out. Now, I don't feel like there's much rhyme or reason to this, other than I'm trying to fill in some of the area here and add some texture. So I'm just going to make some swoops and loops and swirls and fill it in. Okay. All right. I think that looks just about good. Oh, goodness. Okay. Secure that with 2 additional pieces of tear and tape. All right, now we need to strategize. There's a lot of different layers. There's a lot of different characters. I'm not gonna stick anything down yet. I'm just gonna game plan. So we want the honey pot and the stump down here. We want the sentiment there-ish. Now I'm going to bring all of my characters into play. I'm just going to place them around the scene. We'll adhere them once we've got everything situated. So we are roughly in this vicinity. I can zoom you in a little bit. Okay. For the characters, most of them are dimensionalized, but not all of them. So I'm going to start in the back with Kanga. I'm going to put a dimensional behind her head, and then liquid glue on the bottom. I'm not going to put any adhesive on the tail because the tail gets mostly cut off. I don't want her falling off the top, so I'm going to place her that her ears are in the sky. And I'll do all of the trimming later. Okay, next we've got Rabbit, and again, Rabbit is going to have dimensionals on his head and glue on his feet. Just like Kanga, I don't want Rabbit off the sky. So, and I'm not sticking the dimensionals down yet so that I have the opportunity to move them if I need to. Next, we're going to place down the sentiment, and we are going to do that via double stacks. Behind the top. Hello, Rosalind. Thank you so much for joining from New Mexico. Okay, I want this centered. And I want it to be up to the sky, but not off of the sky. I also want it straight. Which I think is relatively there. Okay, then we're going to do Eeyore. We're going to put Eeyore here-ish. I'm going to put a dimensional behind his head and adhesive under his feet. All right, I think you get the gist now. Owl. Now, owl's kind of hitting the sky, so I'm going to put a double stack behind his head and glue on his feet. He comes out farther. Put him approximately there. I did actually stick his dimensionals down. I'm feeling good about where these are going, so I'm actually going to stick the rest of the character's dimensionals down as well. We'll start to commit. All right. Now we've got Piglet and Tigger, which are going to be stuck down flat. So we'll get them down. And I chose to put them, it depends on how big your grass is. I chose to put him right on the grass. On my sample, his feet come down into the green. His feet come down into the brown. I did that on purpose, but this particular layout, I did not do that. Okay, then Tigger also goes relatively there. For Tigger, I have him sitting on the bottom of the grass and his tail is just about to the edge of the paper. All right, then we've got dimensionals behind the tree stump. Just gonna place this down gently. We have a dimensional behind the honey pot and a little bit of glue on the base. And then Pooh Bear. We're going to put dimensional behind his head, dimensional under the feet, and I think I double stacked him. Thanks for joining, Susan. Okay, so now depending on where your Pooh Bear falls, I'm going to have a double stack on his feet and a single layer on his head. I'm going to move that double stack because on my original, his head went onto the second layer of grass, but on this one it's still on the first layer of grass, which has dimensionals behind it. So I don't want him to be all tilty. Okay, So that takes care of the scene. I'm going to move all of the dimensionals into the garbage. And move this. Oh, I do want to trim Kanga's tail. Beautiful. We'll come back with embellishments on all of the pieces on the end. Woohoo! I zoomed properly. That doesn't always happen. All right, water break. Nice, simple one next. Okay, it never hurts to keep looking up in early espresso on our little sentiment strip. We want to keep it far to the left because we do have a very tight space that we're working with. There's a cat fur on here. Okay. All right. Perfect. All right, then we have a tear at an angle, although that looks like it's still drying a little bit, so we're gonna hold off on that for a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and glue this on. Look at that, is die cutting perfection. Thanks, Mom. Again, I had previously done dimensionals on all of this, but I am making the conscious choice to have flat adhesives for this. Okay, get that matted on there. Okay, diagonal tear on that piece. Then I'm going to flip it over. Is there a roux to go with the king? There is not. I know, isn't that sad? So Stampin' Up! Had a kangaroo stamp that had a little Joey in its pouch, and I was obsessed with it. It was back when I had Zach, maybe? Gosh, it cannot be that long ago. Maybe it was when I had Jake. And it really spoke to me because I felt like a kangaroo. And so we could probably steal a little Joey from that stamp set, but I know there's no roux for our Kanga. All right, so we've got a tail and a loop and a tail and a loop. And then a tear and tape sandwich. Okay. We have dimensionals behind our sentiment. And then we are going to line this up right up to the string, leaving just the smallest margin between. Actually, yeah, we've got a dimensional hanging off the side, so I'm just going to let that hang. And then we're not going to stick Piglet with his balloon on yet because we want that to be kind of, sorry, I can see it, you can't. We want him to be running across the top of the bottom panel, and I don't want it to be crooked or not where it needs to be. So we're going to hold off on that for just a minute. All right, we need to stand. There we go. So for the time being, that panel is done. We're going to move him off to our pile and move on to the next panel, which looks very similar. Another quick and easy one. We are going to stamp, oh bother, but we want that to be in the quite top portion of this circle. And one second, I need to put my sweatshirt on because I got cold. All right, so we will bring our early espresso ink back in. And when you stamp this, you're gonna wanna stay toward the top. Perfect. Oh, I grabbed an extra stamp on accident. Well, that's okay. All right, again, going to just go ahead and mat this down flat. No die cuts out of this one. Had plenty out of the past one, although I do want to get closer to the edge. All right, so we want dimensionals behind the honey pots, and the other two things are going to be laid down flat. So I'm going to put 3. I don't necessarily need 3 dimensionals, but I'm going to put 3 dimensionals on. I'm only going to take the adhesive off of the middle one. That's going to help me find the correct placement for these things. Now, I want my honey pots to be along the bottom. I'm gonna do something so silly. I could just put them to cover up the little knob, but I actually want to trim that off because I want my honey pots to be a little higher than that, and I don't want the little knob to show down the bottom. So coming back, I want to place the honey pots down. Then I want to put, oh bother, tucked behind it, in that general vicinity. Now that I have that down, now I'm going to flap this back, peel off the dimensional back, and then lay that down. And then I'm going to do the same thing with Piglet. I'm going to put glue behind him. Have him off to Pooh's side. Get him where I want him. So now I had him where you could kind of see his feet like standing on the honey pot. So somewhere in there, and then I'm going to flap this back and stick the final dimensional down. All right, so that takes care of that panel. We'll move that off to the side. All right, first here we're gonna punch these little extras out. All right, and we are going to stamp. Sometimes when you go looking for happiness, happiness finds you. I thought this was a really great sentiment because Pooh loves honey and honey makes him happy. Second of all, when you go looking for happiness, this scene has the directional posts, which directions, looking, I don't know. I just thought it worked perfectly. Hello, Marley from Ontario, Canada. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate you being with us this morning. One second, I have a class participant. Reaching out for our in-person class. Verifying the time. Very good. Okay. Now, we need to trim down the DSP seam. So, the size that we are shooting for. Oh, thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad to hear that you love it. I'm glad that you jumped on and commented. Okay, so we have a 4x6 espresso mat, which means our hydrangea mat is 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, which means our DSP scene is going to be 3 1/2 by 5 1/2. So let's grab our paper cutter and make those cuts. My goal is to have an equidistant border around the edges, which is really hard to do. So I'm going to start by cutting off on the right hand side. Oh, we have our northern friends making friends. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to trim some of the vanilla off the edge, and I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees and make my cut at 5.5. So we've got vanilla on both sides, so that works out well. And then right now my piece is approximately 3 3/4. So I need to cut 1/4 of an inch off, which means I'm going to cut 1/8 of an inch off the top and 1/8 of an inch off the bottom. All right, that just about does it for you. Okay, now we're going to mat the pieces together. When there's die cut pieces, I like to put the glue on the piece that has the dies cut out of them so that I don't get a sticky mess. So normally I would just put glue on the hydrangea piece and stick it to the espresso piece, but all of this area would be a gluey sticky mess. So I do it backwards. Now, I'm not going to do that on this piece because, you know, you don't want to get too close to the edge and you don't want to be too far away from the edge. So that's why you don't typically do it on there, but we make exceptions. So now we're just going to flip this over and put glue on the back of our DSP. Oh my goodness. Mascot is a big old catfish called Muddy. That's a very, that sounds very Canada. And I say that absolutely lovingly because, well, Wisconsin seems to be a little bit of an extension of Canada. Similar weather, similar hobbies, pastimes, similar scenery. Not the same, definitely not the same. Okay, so we've got it all matted up, which looks wonderful. Now we need to start layering. So I laid this piece down flat, and again, I'm going to cut the corner because I don't want that peeking out. And you're not going to see it anyways. I don't want a small little corner hanging out. Oh, sorry. We're not gluing that down yet. We're adding ribbon first. So we're going to start by putting tear and tape behind the sometimes and behind the U. All right, then we're gonna do a tail. And 2 loops on each end. Linen thread is curly, so it can have a mind of its own, but try to tell it who's boss. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I need to unwind that. Something like that. Oh, wait. Ha! Loop, loop. I need to do another loop down here. Oh my goodness, and now it ran away. Okay, I've got a little bit of a mess on my hands. Wow! Oh my goodness. Holy criminy. Wowza. Okay, also I have a mess in this regards. I'm going to undo that for just a minute. I'm going to measure for you, ladies. I have about 29 inches. You might want to start with a nice long piece, approximately 29 inches, and then pull the curls out of it. That will make it quite a bit nicer to work with. Okay, so I'm going to start with a tail and a little loop down there. And then a loop up there. A smaller tail down there. A smaller tail up here. Excuse me, a smaller loop up here. Actually, a bigger loop up there. I want a nice big one. And then, okay, so yeah, that 29 inches was plenty. But it's just linen thread. It's not, don't need to worry about being wasteful. Okay. Finish that tear and tape sandwich. All right, I had originally said that I was going to stick that down using liquid glue. I changed my mind because it, oh my gosh. That's weird. I changed my mind because of the ribbon on the back. So we want it to not be curly, so we're going to use dimensionals. The ribbons hold it up a little bit, and we don't want it to be all wavy behind here. Okay. Dimensionals down. In terms of placement, I have it placed that you can see blue through the diamond, so it's just hovering, kind of pointing to the brown and hitting the brown over here. All right. Next we have the picnic scene. The picnic scene is also going to go down with dimensionals. roughly in that general location. And then the signpost. So I put dimensionals behind the signpost. Remember when I had all those dimensional strips? Where did I put them? Way back here. All right, so this is not ideal. We're gonna cut a dimensional strip in half. Yowza. Okay. I'm going to tuck this behind the honey pot. Okay. Then we have the signs. So I had dimensionals behind both sides of the sign. Oopsies. I cocked it at a little bit of an angle. And then I have a dimensional behind the back of the thicker sign and a double stack on the front. And then I have that kind of overlapping the sign. Look at that. I love it. It's super cute. Okay. We are assembling the acorn. Oh, come on. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, that moved. All right, then we have this leaf, which mostly is going to be hung up by, I think we can put half a dimensional on each of the top parts. You could probably get by with a full dimensional. I don't want to risk it. I do for sure want to put liquid glue on the bottom part for where it intersects with the label. Something like that. And then the acorn, we're going to put a dimensional behind. And liquid glue on the top. Oh, cute. All right, that should take care of that. Could also trim the linen thread down here. All right, that is panel number 5. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Last but certainly not least, we have panel number 6. And this one, let me tell you, it's going to give you a little bit of a run for your money, but I'm just being dramatic. Oh my gosh, I have a couple bug bites on my foot, and I cannot stop itching them, so my sincere apologies. Okay. We need to trim down the seam, and we need to stamp. So let's start by trimming down the seam. Our mat is 3 by 5, which means our seam is going to be 4 3/4 by 2 3/4. Okay. I'm going to start by trimming along the top. Just going to cut a very minimal amount of color off the top. Then we are going to rotate it and trim it at 4 3/4. Okay, so that's our height. As for our width, okay, we don't want to cut real much off the side, but we don't want too much of any of this vanilla. So basically, we're gonna move it over until we start to run out of vanilla. As a landmark, that puts us about halfway through this pine tree, okay? Like if you need some reinforcement, you're about halfway through the pine tree. See? Poor little pine. Then you're going to cut at 2 3/4. That gets ya a perfectly matted piece. You can go ahead and glue that down. Woo! I ran out of paper. Okay. Here's where I was joking that you're gonna get a run for your money. Our stamp says "so very happy for you," which is very much a card sentiment, not very much a sampler sentiment. So I used all of the rest of the sentiments came from the Sweet Words and Labels. And they all worked really great on the scenes, and they all worked really great for a sampler. But I needed one more. And the only one that was left, or maybe there was 1 or 2 left, just didn't make sense. Oh, here we go. Oh, I will love you until forever and even after that. Okay, so that didn't quite work for this scene or any of the scenes. Or, you know, I wanted it to be very universal. Granted. I love that. The other one was Old Friends Are the Best Friends, which I had previously used on other things, but again, didn't quite work here. So I moved away from the Sweet Words and Labels, brought in Scalloped Wishes. It's just "so very happy for you" isn't quite right. So we're going to use the "so very happy." But the PPY comes right down to the "for you." So you have to be very cautious when you are inking up your stamp. So to do that, I tried to ink up all of it besides the For You. Without missing any pieces of the PP and the Y. I did get some on the R, so I'm going to try to pull that back. Some people like masking, like putting something under that you'd stamp like the For You parts on that aren't the label. I didn't necessarily want to do that. We'll see. Okay, now we also want this to be centered. So we're going to go about there. I think it's crooked, but it's okay. All right, then we clean up our stamp. We are done stamping for the sampler. There is nothing left. All right, now ribbon is going in a little bit of a circular pattern off of this side over here. Somewhat of a rat's nest, you might say. All right, so we're just gonna add some circles down here. Oops. Just used up that scrap that I had left from before, but I do want one more little hoop. So we'll put that in there. And I think we're going to call that good. All right, good deal. Dimensionals behind this. That's going to put us right up here. Okay, then we have two leaves. The smaller leaf is going to go on the top. Again, I think I'm going to split a dimensional. And use liquid glue to attach it to the label. So this one rounds up here. I want that heart to be sticking out. This bottom heart, which is upside down, which doesn't matter, but just for reference, I'm going to cover that one up. Now, there's not a ton of space hanging off, so I'm just going to go ahead and use liquid glue behind here. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to use a dimensional behind Pooh Bear's head. The rest I'm going to just glue down flat. Then I'm going to take the rest of the pots, flat adhesive on that, and tuck this under. Thereabouts. Move him down just a little bit. All right, that takes care of that layer. All right. I want another drink of water. I also need to go potty. So I'm going to make a quick potty run while you admire the work we've done and just the little bit of work we have left. I'll be right back. Okay. Can we zoom back in? I can't see the details. Absolutely. What I'll do is I'll get this assembled and then I'll zoom in on each of the panels if that is helpful to you. Okay, we are now ready to start assembling. So, what I did was I tried to place the pieces approximately where I wanted before sticking them down permanently. So I'm going to go ahead and use some glue dots in the relative location where these things are going to stay. And then once I figure out exactly where I want them, then we'll get them stuck down. So I'm going to put one glue dot per panel. We like to call these non-committal dots. It helps us place everything without it getting stuck permanently. Because like, I love liquid glue because you get a little bit of cure time, but it goes fast. Okay, so I'm gonna hover everything relatively where I want it. Until I find the final placement for everything. So, first and foremost, I want approximately an inch on the edge. My ruler that I use is an inch wide, so I usually use that just as a straight flat edge. So I want 1 inch from the edge on each of the side squares. I want about 1.25 inches from the bottom. Or is it an inch? It might be an inch. I think it's a little better than an inch. So I've got about 1 1/8 inches at this exact moment. So let's bring this guy down a little bit. I think I need to move that guy down a little bit too. How come? Oh, just kidding. Let me guess. Chris's ruler is not quite 1 inch. No, it's 3/4 of an inch. Haha. Maybe it was 3/4 of an inch from the edge and 1 inch from the top. Something about that. Okay. I'm gonna put that there. Put that there. Okay. I'll give you better measurements as soon as I have it more situated. But I think I got it pretty good. I'm going to glue these down flat. I'm going to start again on the upper left and the bottom right. Making that nice and square in the corners, then aligning the middle squares and then putting the labels down. Okay. Okay. That looks good. So by putting down the non-committal dots, I'm about an inch from each edge. It's about 7/8, sometimes it's more of an inch. Nothing is absolutely square. We all try our absolute best to make things square and perfect and wonderful, but it doesn't always work out perfectly square. So I have about 1/4 inch margin. It's probably more like 3/8 of an inch margin between the panels. And approximately an inch, it's more like 7/8 on the side. And approximately an inch on the top and bottom. But I'm not holding to that too tightly because it's more important to me that it looks visually straight, visually square, and visually spaced than worrying too much about the measurements, if that makes any sense. Okay. All right, so I think everything held and is pretty good. I do need to add Piglet, which I know we had talked about doing at the end. So now would be the time to do that. I have him running along the bottom here. Okay. And then I also need to add our embellishments. So we've got antique pearls. Which now I'll zoom in on each of the panels as we place the embellishments. So antique pearls come in 3 sizes. I used a large above the acorn, nested with a small, and then I tucked a medium under the deserve-ish area. All right. Moving on to the character panel. I had a large off the side of Kanga. And then a medium and a small nested over Pooh Bear. Okay, for the balloon panel, we have a large and a small on the bottom. And then a medium tucked in this corner. Okay. Oh, cannot be that crooked. All right. Oh, bother. All right. I used a large and a small nested up top. And then I took a medium and put it down yonder. Okay, I need one more dimensional. Oopsies. Gotta shimmy this one behind the yellow honey pot. Oh, that dimensional is no longer sticking. That would make sense. All right, the picnic scene. We've got a large dimensional beneath Pooh Bear's butt, nested with a small dimensional. And a medium dimension, oh, wow, embellishment. A medium embellishment tucked under the signpost. Then for our final panel, we have a large and a small on the sentiment. We have a medium in the top right. We have an additional medium nested under the leaf. And an additional small also nested by the leaf. Obviously, you have plenty left if you want to add any others. have it. That is the sampler. What do you think? I love it so, so much. I'm excited to regain custody of mine. Mine's been at the Hive for a month, advertising it and obviously getting ready to create. But I'm excited to take it home. It's so pretty. From there, you can put it in any 11 by 14 frame, which 11 by 14 is a standard photograph size. So you should not have any trouble finding an 11 by 14 frame or shadow box. Walmart, Target, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, any of those stores should have an 11 by 14 for you. We did go with the blonde. This was from Michael's, so I'm sure this terminology probably only works at Michael's, but we did go with the blonde frame. An espresso frame would also look very nice. So there you have it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed making the Silly Old Bear sampler with me, Kelly, from Cards by Christine. I have the PDF tutorial in the Drive folder, but also I did have a wrong measurement on the olives, so I'm going to update that and I will resend it to all paid participants. The PDF tutorial is available for purchase for someone who did not participate in the class. Also, I do have a few left of the sampler if you are interested. So, thank you so much for joining. I really do truly appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Sending lots of sunshine, love, big hugs, rainbows, and bright skies your way.